'Cause I am yours and you are mine. 'Cause I am yours, you are mine. You are mine.
Dearly beloved in Jesus Christ, chapter 34 of Prophet Isaiah portrays the image of the leadership in Israel community. Charges were brought against them for their negligence, for their unskillfulness, and for their unfaithfulness in management of the public affairs. So, God the Father condemns them and decides that he himself would be shepherding his own flock. Similarly, in the gospel too, Jesus comes to judge his people on the basis of the good deeds that they had done to their neighbor. In other words, today's liturgy of the word speaks about God being a king, judges his people on the basis of the good deeds that they have done to their neighbor. In other words, today we are celebrating that kingship of Jesus Christ. Dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, today the Holy Mother Church celebrates the solemnity of Christ the King. The solemnity of Christ the King was instituted by Pope Pius XI in 1925 to remind all Christians that their allegiance is to the King of the heaven, not the supreme rule of this earth. Pope Benedict XVI remarks, the kingship of Jesus does not depend upon any human power. He tells, it depends upon the service and the love that we have towards others. And in today's gospel, this service and love is very well explained. Today's parable is a vivid one that is most simply explained by Jesus in the entire gospel. It gives a very clear and crystal answer for all of us, saying, God judges his people on the basis of their action towards the needy in day-to-day life. His judgment does not depend upon the intelligence one amasses, the fortune one gains, or the fame one earned in all his life, but it depends upon the action that you have given to the needy. That is why Jesus calls and tells, you are judged by the very actions that you have given to your neighbor when they are needed. And that's what we are going to reflect upon. Today's parable gives two important notions for us to reflect upon about the help that we have to render to our neighbor. Firstly, the help that we have to render to our neighbor must be help in little simple things. The simple things that Jesus chooses, giving food to the hungry, welcoming a stranger, visiting the sick, and visiting the people who are in prison. These are the things that any human person with a kind heart can do. And this is what Jesus asks us to do. It is not a matter of giving £1 million to the one who is in need. It is not the matter of giving our all inheritance to the good of the humanity, but Jesus tells simple good deeds in our day-to-day life can pave way for us to eternal kingdom. Remember, often Mother Teresa would say, we may not be able to do the great things in our life, but we can do the little things with great love. Dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, small deeds done with great love in appropriate time bears good fruit. And these good deeds are rewarded by the King when he comes with his angelic hosts. Dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, in the present scenario in our world, amidst the crisis of the pandemic, we have ample of choices where we can put these little deeds as our Christian help to our neighbor who are in need. And when we have done this thing, we will prove to others that we are Christians because we are identified by the love and service in our small deeds to our neighbors. Secondly, the gospel passage tells that the help that we give should be an help given uncalculatingly. The people who helped in today's gospel, they do not know that they were helping God. Their heart was overflowing with compassion and love for their neighbor when they were in need. They could not, but they have to help because of the inner voice of Christian calling. And they helped. Jesus praised their little deeds. On the other hand, the people who failed to help their neighbors, they would say, if we were to know that it was Jesus who came to us for help, we would have gladly helped him. And they continue to say, we saw a common man coming to our doorstep for help, and we thought he was not a man that is worthy of our help. That's why we rejected. And again, dear brothers, there are some people who are ready to help provided you praise and thank them publicly. Dear brothers, it is not help, it is a self-estimation. It is not a generous act from our part, but it is a disguised selfishness. Therefore, the gospel clearly tells that the small acts that we do without any calculations generously for our brothers will be rewarded by the King when he comes with his angelic hosts. And on the other hand, those people who help others for sake of praise, for the sake of their self-esteem, for the sake of their own benefit, will be penalized. Down through the history of the church, we have great men and women who heeded the voice of Christ and paved way in their small little acts. One among them, we can say, example of Saint Francis of Assisi. He was a wealthy, rich man, and he was called King of the Youth. But he found no meaning in all of them. But when he gave a simple, warm hug to a leper on the way, he found meaning in his life. From then onwards, rest of his life, he dedicated his life for doing a simple deeds, feeding the hungry, washing the wounds of the lepers, and giving shelter to those who have no place. And you see, he found favor in the eyes of God. And again, Saint Martin of Tours was another example who did small little deeds but found favor in the eyes of God. He gave his coat torn into two, and half piece he gave to a man who was shivering in the cold. And you see, that half-torn coat found favor in God's sight. Therefore, dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, today's gospel passage clearly tells us that we can do little deeds and go into the kingdom of God. It is the simplest acts that helps us to become one among the elect of God's kingdom. Therefore, dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, as we celebrate the solemnity of Christ the King, let us all imbibe and heed the voice of the King who tells us to do little acts for the neighbor. And these little acts does not cost our money, does not take much of our energy, but a willing heart. And this willing heart will be rewarded when Christ the King comes into this earth. Let's continuously ask God for his help so that we may develop that kind heart towards the neighbor. Let God help us all in this regard.